Jacqueline here with an insight for those of you who would love to know or find out more about how to embroider applique on your embroidery machine using pre-bought or magazine elements rather than hand embroidery and hand applique everything you have. Now, you may be interested, you may not be, but this is just an insight of how I do it and the effects you can achieve and what is possible. I hope you enjoy it. This particular project is part of the Peter Rabbit magazine bedspread quilt that a lot of people I know who are friends of mine are involved with right now. So here we go. Right, I've just opened up my digitizing program, which is a genomic digitizer version 5.5. It's on the par of Wilcom Hatch 2. The genomic digitizer is made by Wilcom, so they're very, very similar. But what I would say, and I'm not sure whether this is available to you in Hatch, but it certainly is available in this program, that I have a graphic element to this, which means that I can bring in graphics and use an entirely separate coral element to manipulate and exchange elements of my graphics out kind of to one side of the program and then bring it back in as I want it to appear. Now, maybe Hatch does that, I am not sure, but certainly this program does. So it takes a minute for it to open up because this is quite an involved program. I'll just get rid of that so that I got a clear screen. Oops. Now, originally I have scanned in the page of the applique that I wish to copy, emulate and digitize. So I am just going to import that now into this graphic side so I can get rid of elements that I really don't want. Peter Rabbit. PDFs. Central. I'm doing the roses. Where are they? Rose border. As curves, because I don't want any of the text. So there it is. I'm just going to hit enter so it just comes in full pelt as, you know, an A4 picture. But I am now going to go over to my crop tool and take a judgment. There it is. So there it is. Yeah, I don't need it that fat. I like to bring things down to the minimum that I require. That'll do. So I'll just double click that. Go to my pickup tool. And that's it. Now, in my program, that's all I need to do. I have now got just the element that I want to take back into my embroidery program. So there it is. Now, what I need to do is bring up a hoop. Let's click on the hoop and see what size I've got. Yeah, 8-inch. I'm just going to zoom out a moment so I can see how it's fitting. Now, it's not in the middle, is it? So I'll click on the element. I'll go to layout and I'll say auto center to work area, hit enter. So now it's auto centered. So now that picture is in the middle of my hoop. Over here on the right, my resequencing, I will pick it up and I'll left click and lock it. See, this little lock symbol has come up now next to the graphic. So no matter what I do now, the graphic will not move. I know it's centered in my hoop, so I can now get rid of my hoop, and now I can bring it up to total window presence. Okay? Now I'm ready to work on this element and digitize it. Now this design has elements of applique. So, for example, if I just run my cursor around the edge, that entire shape is material, and these shades that you can see on top are embroidery. And in exactly the same way, the rosebuds here, the shapes, are in a pink material with embroidery over the top. So the very first thing I need to do, I'll start with number 1, is I will use my cursor to allow me to set down applique. Okay, so in this program, what does that mean? That means I'm going to go to applique mode and digitize applique. I need to do some things to sort this out. It's going to be pre-cut, because I am going to take the elements of this and cut it out on a machine. Stitch type zigzag, new. Stitch type tack is none. And the cover is not satin, it's going to be blanket. And I wish to change this to 0.120 inches, and the width of the stitch, how far apart the stitches are, I want to change to 0.60. Let's see how we go with that. I don't wish to change the tack and cover offset, that'll do me. The next thing I want to do is to pick a dusky pink, that'll do for me for a moment, in the colour that I'm going to use. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it up really big, and I know that given by my outline picture of cutting the fabric, it's quite involved. So now I'm going to bring this up, and as you can see, this is at 200%, 300%. That might do me, may not, but let's see. Now I'm going to start down here in a V, and I'm going to right click on my mouse, which is going to give me what they call a square point. But from now on, more or less, everything is curved, which will be a left click on my mouse. So as I bring it up, you can hear me left clicking. And I'm following the outline. But now I come to where I want dramatic change. That is a right click, a square angled point, followed by more curves as I go round. I might make it even bigger. The bigger you make it, the easier it is to follow. Don't worry, that'll come in line. Quite often when you do that, you see it go a little haywire. But if you're using the right type of stitch, and you can hear by the sounds when I'm using left or right clicks. It's when I want sharp detail that you hear that right click come in. Now here, I'm just going to whiz out, just so I'm double checking, yep, that I'm still encompassing what I want. Again, I'm just going to zoom out so I know that I'm still on the same path. Yep. Now, if I should make a terrible mistake, like go over here, I can backspace. It'll take me back a few nodules. You see, I lost the plot there. Remember, this is also going to be my cut line for the fabric. So it has to be fairly, it has to be fairly on point. And then I'll just hit enter, which is a closed space, right? Then I'm going to bring it back out and I'm going to look at it. Now, as blanket stitch, when you've got these deep V's, you're always going to get a point that comes out. Yeah, if you've got a deep V, you're going to get a deep point. Now, I don't mind them because I think they give definition. But looking at that, and I'm going to look at it as a whole, actually, I'm going to, yeah, about 100, I'm going to, let's put it to 0. That's 119, so it's slightly bigger than real size. But I still think that, oh yeah, look over here, I'm right. You see, I put it 060, didn't I? And it's changed it. So I thought they were deep. So I've just clicked on the whole thing over here. And I'm going to go back and change that 060 because that's what I want. Now you can see that's better. If I bring that bit up a bit, I'm still going to get these long points on a deep V. But as you can see, I got a much better coverage and proportional size of blanket stitch for my element. Okay, the next elements are going to be these rosebuds, which I will just quickly, I don't need to change colour or anything. I'm not changing the settings, so hopefully they will continue. I'll just say I'm digitizing applique if you don't mind. I'll start with a square point, and in this case, oh, I want it bigger. The reason I want it bigger is so that I got a thicker line to aim for with my points, and enter to encompass. Again, I'll just take all of that and tell it to go to 060. Again, that's better. I do not know why it's not holding it. So I'll go to Digitizing Applique. It's changed it. So before we start this time, I'm going at 060, right? Before we even start. Better, right? And then I should be able to, it's kept it on it now. I should be able to no, not happy with that. Not happy with that either. Sometimes you need harsh square changes. There we go. Okay. So, although, yeah, because I've used squares, I'll come back out to 100%. I got a few things. But I'm not worried about that because I know I've got embroidery that's going to go over the top of that, isn't it? So that's going to be, those long stitches are going to be covered up by the embroidery that I'm going to be doing over the top of the material part of the rosebud. So that's fine. So I'm just going to save that there. Now the next thing I need to do, oops. Oh, say save it as embroidery. What's this one going to be called? Central panel. This, yeah, central. Let's put it in central then, shall we? Let's call it. What was it? Rose. Is that, yeah, that'll do. So I've now saved that as the embroidery file that I'm working on. Now I need to move forward in my magazine and look at it. Right, so basically they are a nice leafy green. Everything else now is a bit of a leafy green. So I can digitize, I can pick darkish. I'm going to go darkish, right? So I've changed my colour. 1, 2, 3, 4. Where's 5 then? Oh, so it's starting up here. So now, making sure that my settings over here are still the same. Don't like it, move it, get bigger. Square point, round point, square point, square point, round point, round point, round point, close together, up, square point, round point, square point, round, round, square, round, round, square, round, round, square. I could be saying left and right, but I think now you're beginning to know the difference. So right is a square, left is a round. So there we are. Now, let me just point out to you, because nothing is ever as simple as it is. When you're doing applique and you're using an applique tab, as you can see, I have told it to do this, that and the other. But the top stitch, that is, if you like, the pink one is the lay down stitch. So you know where to put your piece of material. The green one is the stitch in the tacking down. Didn't like that, did it? There. So I'm going to slightly, very slightly, yep, I had to come down to 0.50, so down a 0.10 of a stitch, just on this particular leaf, and you see how it put the stitch in right, okay? So there's always adjustments that can be made to give better effect. Now I can take it back up to 6.0. I'm still, no, back down to 5.0 because I'm still intact on that. So digitize applique, right colour, over here. Now I'm off the one I just did. And my next one to be done enter. So let's have a look at that. Yeah, it's done a very good coverage. I'm not worried about these long stitches, that's fine by me. Right, now I've done the roses, I've done a couple of the leaves. I'm going to continue on. I've got another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 leaves to do, and I'll come back to you when we've got to that stage and show you what happens next. So I have just completed going around all the other elements, and remembering that at the moment all I am doing is doing an applique stitch, which I'm covering with a blanket stitch for the fabric elements of this applique, and there will be a lot more to come, but this is the next stage. I've saved it as the native file, meaning the original file, to my digitizer, which has the extension EMB. This is the one I can always work on. I can change any element, anything at all with, and I am now going to save it as a machine file. In this case, I am going to save it as a Jeff because I have a genomic machine, but I could equally save it as anything else. But I want to save it into a machine file format, which, if you like, is the sort of file that you would buy if you were buying somebody else's work. You wouldn't be buying the native file, you would be buying the file that is machine coded to fit your particular sewing machine. I will export it the design to a Jeff file, which is my Crafty so-and-so's. Let's find where are we? Let's find Peter Rabbit embroidery Jeff file for cutting, right? And I will will export it as a Jeff file. As you can see here, I could do it as a Benina, Baby Lock, Brother, Pez, Viking, Faff, Singer, you name it, I could do it. But I'm not. I'm going to do it as a Jeff. Save it as a Jeff file. This is the next step. I'm hoping I will just close this down now and open up my next program, which is my Silhouette Studio. All right. Okay, so this is my Silhouette Studio, which is my software for my Cameo machine, for my cutting. And what I can do now is to open that Jeff file, Peter Rabbit. I should have cutting files, cut files, yep. Central panel, probably, nope, not up there. Oop, cut files. I'm sure I put it in here. Did I not? No. What did I do wrong? My Jeff for cutting, my rose Jeff that we just made, and bring it in. I don't know why it keeps wanting to go that way up, but I want it to be this way up. Right, now there it all is. I am going to just highlight everything and for the moment group. Then I can move the whole group over here. Now I'll ungroup. Now I've moved it out of the way. Alright, so I've got the elements. And what I need to do is, if you can see, I need to take away the stitch file. What I'm looking for, and I got it here, is what in the applique digitized file that I made was the tack down line. When you bring it into a cutting program, you get rid of the, I don't want the stitch down file, I want the tack placement line. That is what I'm going to use as my cut line. So in exactly the same way, get rid of the embroidery element or the stitch element, and move the tack down or the placement line is what I actually want to use as my cutting file. Now, I'm not sure at this stage how big the piece of material is that I've got to work with, so that's something for me to work out, okay? But the next stage, once I've got these elements onto my cutting mat, would be to go to send. And as you can see now, there's a red line around them, and I would attach fabric to cover that square, or depending on the size of fabric, rearrange that on the mat so we're all fitted, and then tell it to go cut, and my machine would take the material that's attached to my cutting mat, would take that into the machine and cut out those exact shapes. So that's how I get my shapes to be cut out, pre-cut from my embroidery. Now I know it's exact because if we go back to my design, I brought in the actual elements from my actual program that I just drew out. So naturally the cut is going to fit exactly the stitching that I'm going to go on and tell it to do. So now I don't know, this is Silhouette Studio for a Cameo or portrait machine. This is the software that comes with that machine. I don't know whether this is possible in a Cricut machine. I don't know. I know that it's kind of an online design software, that you have to be online to be able to use this software in the first place. You can't do it offline as such. And I got a feeling it's more geared up to pre-bought designs. I believe you can design in your own design space. That's the name of the software, in design space for Cricut. But I don't know whether it allows you to bring in something that you've already done in an embroidery machine like this one does. I would put penny to a pound that something like what's theirs called? Brother, oh, I can't remember what the actual machine is called. Scan and Cut. Brother Scan and Cut. They would, because it's designed around embroidery. But Cricut is not designed around applique or embroidery or that sort of element. So, don't know, bit dodgy. But this is how I do it, okay? So this will then go, having prepared the material on the cutting board, that goes into my machine, and it will literally cut out those shapes exactly as I've drawn them in my embroidery design software. I've just opened my digitizer software, and now I need to open, it'll be under recent. I don't want the Rose Jeff because that's a machine file. I want the Rose EMB, which is the original file or the native file that I'm working on. Okay, now let's come back to that. It takes a couple of minutes because it's quite a complicated thing to get together. Right, so now we start the actual embroidery. And we'll start on the main rows, and we have to look at the elements. This light grey, as you can see, let's bring it up nice and close. This light grey, according to the magazine, is a baby pink. The darker grey, hang on, yeah, the darker grey is a burgundy colour. So let's look at the elements of the light grey. And I'm looking at the photographs in the magazine. Not quite. Not quite as they purport it on this drawing, but I'm going to do my best. Right, because everybody's working to this drawing, aren't they? So let's first off, now we're going to go into digitize. Okay, and we're going to digitize a closed shape. And we're going to pick a baby pink, a really light baby pink. Well, I'm going to go for that one, because obviously this is just a guide, because when I actually am sat at my machine, I might choose different shades, but this is just giving me the difference of colours for colour stop, which is more or less as I am following it. So let's start. And I am starting with this baby pink, everything in light grey. Again, as big as you like. What am I on now? Oh, nearly 600%. That's good. Right, closed shape. I'm going to start here. And it's exactly the same way as we did before, using left and right clicks. I'm going to mark out that shape. Look at that. Now, I could do it all like that. Actually, that's not light enough, is it? To be a difference to our outside. So have I got another colour I could use? Oh, salmon pink. Orchid pink. Yeah. Let's try that. Let me just go and take that and change it to that. Not really baby pink, is it? What's baby pink? It's a better difference in outline than there was before. So we call that baby pink. Right. So I've done my first element. Now I'm going to do an open shape. Digitizing an open shape. Because according to the magazine, I got a chain in line from here to there. Open shape means that it's not closed up, it is just an open shape. Then, it's quite a very large shape. So now I'm going to go back to closed shape again. All in the same colour. And I'm going to start this here. Making sure I encompass the edge of that line that just came in. Backtracking because I lost the plot there. Backtracking because I lost the plot there as well. So here, remember that's a different colour. I'm trying to get back to where I started because this is the closed shape. There we go. Right. Oops. Let's just highlight that and change it to a fill. There we go. Now let's come out. So now I've done a fill, a line, and a fill. Now this is not, and I've kept it on what they call tatami, because a lot of times I will do all of my embroidery fill in tatami until I decide how I really want it to look. And I can tell how I really want it to look after a lot of the elements are already in place. But to give you a feel for it, let's go up and highlight this section. So that's the only section that I'm working on for a moment. And I want it to be a satin. Look at that, it's changed now. It's going to be a satin. But the effect, because you've got to remember, this is trying to depict a petal of this rose. So then I will choose radial fill. That gives me, that's not so good. So then I will go up here to reshape. I'll make it big. Let me put my note on so I can see it. I'll make it bigger so that I can get into it and really look at it. Say, well, yes, I want that radial effect, but obviously I don't want all. But where's the centre of my flower? The centre of my flower is roughly about here. So now I'll come off of Reshape, knock off that. So now can you see I've given this focus point is around about here as a pet, but I may not be happy with all those elongated stitches. You know, there seems to be quite a, it's not smooth enough for me, so I'll go back into selecting it and reshaping it, which will give me all my other tools back again, bring it up nice and big so I can see him, and say, well, I want it, but let's move, if I move the centre around a little bit, this is the centre focus of where, you see how the stitches are changing. That's nice. Now that's nice in my mind. May not be in yours. And I want the start to be in the same place as the finish. Saves all that jumping around, right? So there we go. Come back off a reshape into select and let's come out. Now, I'm happier with that. The next thing I may do, remember I usually do this at the end, just fill it all in with embroidery and then fuss with the embroidery so that I get it to be as I want. Now I do not want that to be single run. We did this as a digitized open shape, so it's just a line, yeah, but I don't want it to be a single run. I want it to show better than that. I don't want it to, I don't think I want it to be as fat as a satin stitch, but I want it to show. So I'm going to change it to a back stitch. You see how that just got fatter? I'll undo it and redo it. See how that line just got fatter? That's a back stitch. And at the same time, I will go into object properties. Well, having highlighted it now, over here you can see I have got the options of the length, the thickness, the overlap. 3 strands or 5 strands. There's 5 strands, that makes it thicker too. I could change more of these properties to make it thicker. Overlap more, whatever. But I won't. I'm going to undo that, undo that, undo that, undo that, undo that, because I quite liked it like that. So that has given me the thickness okay, I no longer selected. Right, so that has given me the thickness that I like, or I think I'm going to like, by changing options. Now, I can change this option too. I can pick up this huge big one and say, well, let's go to satin. But look at it, right? So then I can go to effects, and there are so many effects, but on this one, I'm going to come back to the radial fill, go to reshape, move the center, because I think the center should be over there. And I will play with this a bit. I'll say, okay, that'll do me for now, right? But I will play with this because, as I said to you before, until I've got the other elements in, and I am messing with it as a whole picture, I'm not sure how I want that to look at the end of the day. But this is the sort of thing that I do. Plus, I can individually affect the angle of some stitches and not others. I can thin it out, thicken it up. There's all kinds of different things you could do, but this is the very start of digitizing a design. Now I'm going to go ahead and continue with a lot more of this and come back to you when we get on to further elements. I just wanted to pop back and say I'm now laying down this darker burgundy, and the reason why I've come back to you at this point, I think this is the last bit of burgundy that I am putting down that is adjacent to other embroidery at the moment. And let's bring it out nice and big. Don't worry about this pink at the moment. I've just laid it down and I said, oh yeah, be satin. But the only one petal that I am satisfied with at the moment is this one. The rest I'm doing in tatami for the moment, because as I said to you, until I get an overview of the laid down colours, then I start fiddling with the way I want the stitch out to work, the way I want the actual stitches to lay down in the way I want it to be perceived, to give me the light and dark and the overall picture of a velvety rose. So there's lots more to be done yet, but I want to take this opportunity of just saying I got to lay down colour next to colour. Now there's something in the world of embroidery you may have heard of, which is called pull factor. Now in this software, pull factor is taken into account, but you still got to be aware of it, and it doesn't 100% take account of it, so you still got to do things yourselves to compensate for it as well. Pull compensation. Now what I mean by that is, if say for example this great big chunk here has all been sewn, that is going to affect the layout of the fabric. It's going to draw it in to this great big piece of embroidery. Yeah, it's going to pull it on these lines away from what was the original line. Now, it may look all very good and marvellous on screen, but on screen it's not a piece of material, piece of woven material that is going to get reduced by heavy stitching. This is what we call pull compensation. So I can start here, and obviously to start off with, I can just go round. See, sometimes I need bigger. Sometimes not as cleverly as I'd like, but I can go round. I can say, well, this is how I want my stitching to look. Yeah? Remember I said to you, don't worry too much about the way your these heavy lines may look on your applique, your blanket stitch, because here we get to the point, which doesn't really matter, does it? Because it's all getting covered up by embroidery. But now I am going to overlay a colour on a colour that's already distorted my fabric millimetres, but enough that it could leave a hole behind because it's drawn the fabric in. So to compensate from that, I am now, can you see what I'm doing? I am now putting down my stitches next to a colour, but over the top. And you might think, well, why are you doing that? Because it will have pulled the damn material. It will have pulled the fabric out of where I want the fabric to be. So this is a compensation that I'm making. So if you like, on the screen, I'm overwriting the stitches that are already there by a few millimeters. But in reality, when it comes to sew, because of the way it will scrunch the material together, that is the new outline. So I will not be overwriting very much at all of the stitches that were underneath. And if I was to make it absolutely on the line of sight, on the edge of those stitches all the way around, I would end up with a hole. I would end up with something not stitched between the two colours. That's pull compensation. Okay? So if you're digitizing, bear that in mind, that quite a heavy blob of stitching will distort the fabric that you're working on. And that's, so you need to overlap as you go to allow for that. Now on something like this one, which has no other embroidery to be concerned about, well, I can just stick to the lines that are there because nothing else has moved it so far. Nothing else has moved it. So that's nice and easy, isn't it? Oh, I think that's green. I would say, I don't know, without looking at the picture. Oh no, they've done it as purple. I'm not. I'm going to do that as green. Am I? No. Okay. No, I'm not. I'm going to do it as one piece as it comes round. Oh. Now, I put down all the pinky bits that's supposed to go down, according to the magazine. That's what the pinky bits should look like on the rose. Never mind, all I got to do now for the other is to shove in, you know, there's these dark marks and here are where I got to shove in some green embroidery. But for now, I have put in all the dark embroidery, or the pink embroidery. So now what I'm going to do, which I can do on this machine, is I can go back to my applique shapes and I can tell it, I want to put a colour behind it. I want to put a rose type colour behind it. Yep, that'll do. That's approximately the fabric that I'm using for my applique. See? That's that one. And I'll just gather up the others. And I'll just do the same again. Okay, so now you can see how I go. That's not for real, that's just coloured in like a painting box. But this is an approximation of what the end result will look like. Now I can start to change my stitch. Now I can see how it's going to be on the fabric, which shows me how my outline stitches are going to look. Yeah, see it? And now I can start adjusting my actual embroidery and stitch length, stitch design, stitch angles, and all those kind of elements that are going to make me happy with the end results. Now, the next job after that is for me to put in the green elements in embroidery on the leaves, colour the leaves green, and let's see how the whole thing looks at the end. So I'll come back to you when I have actually done that. Right, you've rejoined me now, and I've changed an awful lot of the elements on this. I have shown you what I've done as I'm doing it, and you can see how I've mucked about with the way these stitches are facing, whether they're radial or whether they're flat. I'm leaving that as a flat tatami, yeah? I've put in the shaded part of the leaf, and I've left that's tatami, so it's not satin as such, in as much as I wanted it to be a flatter look. This is going to give me the velvet effect on the rose, but I wanted a flatter look on the leaf. But I have changed, I've done sculpting on this, all kinds of things that I do, yeah, which I can't get into teaching you. I'm just showing you, right? But on the little tiny leaves here under the buds, that again is a radial design of satin for that. So now let's look. If we take some of the, I'll have to go back to the applique for this. Right back up here, and if I just collect together all the leaf applique and ask it to object properties and say what's the fabric under it. Now, the colour of fabric that they've given us is, it's almost, it's like a lime green, isn't it? I think, yeah, the nearest I've got to it is that, I think. Okay, now, the reason why I'm doing this, so now, the other thing we can do now is we can hide the design. My background is slightly green anyway, but I'm hiding the design now, so all you can see is my work that I've done and coloured in with my own background. So there's no more artwork, you can't see it, right? My honest opinion is, I think it's not quite as vivid as that lime green, but I don't know what I could do. But I think that those, for my way of looking at it, that stitching is too dark. It's all right for the buds, but too dark in the middle of the leaf. So I'll go and I'll just collect up all those elements that are the inside of it and change that. Too light. Let's go back up. That's better. Oh, that's better, isn't it? Yeah, I think. So I've just changed that element. Now, as I say, it doesn't matter, because once you get to the machine and you're sewing it out, well, you can pick whatever thread you've got. I mean, I very often do this on the screen. Oh, it looks marvellous. I get to the machine and I go, nah, I don't like that. And I pick something else. But it's to give me an overall visual of what I'm doing and how I want it, you know, a better idea of how I want the finished product to look. Okay, so this is how I digitize my artwork. And all of this work so far, naturally, is on my computer. It's on screen. I'm just going to save it. When it comes, I will have to hoop up now. I will take the elements that I've cut, which are going to be all the green leaves and all the pink shapes. They will have been cut, so they're ready to go down. They will. Before I cut them, I adhere the whole piece of fabric to heat and bond light. I cut it. I take the paper off and I cut it with the heat and bond light attached to it. So they're ready to go. So when I've got everything under the hoop and I put down my first stitch, which is, if you remember, if we go back up here, will be the outline. Yeah, that outline. And it'll lay down the placement stitch. I'll put my cut shape on it, and using a craft iron, we'll iron it directly in the hoop down. And then the next stitch after that will be doing the blanket stitch to hold it down. Then it goes on to the other shapes and the leaf shapes. So we do all that. We change the colour for the leaf shapes. We do all that. Then it starts on the embroidery. And if you'll notice, in my process of doing this, I group colours. All my colours are grouped, so, which saves me stopping the machine and changing the colour. So all the colours are in groups so that they can go down, and thankfully in this one they can go down in the order in which I've set them. Sometimes with work like this you may have to switch back and forth once or twice, because there is an element that is overlapping an element of another colour, and it's like, it gets a bit complicated. But so far this one is quite straightforward. Anyway, I hope you like that. I'm hoping to show you a little bit more of it actually coming together. All right, so the final, why don't you go pick up, select. The final stage now, because we're going to be leaving the computer and physically doing this now, right? So the final stage is, let's put my hoop back on to check that everything still is in the middle. Yes, it is. This is my 220 by 220, which approximates to 8 by 8. Okay, it's a little bit bigger than 8 by 8, but look, there's plenty of room around it anyway. So it's my 8 by 8 hoop, which I can plop the material on with magnets. Absolutely brilliant. So the next thing to do is I've just put my USB stick into the slot in my computer, and I'm going to say to it, right. At the moment, as you know, this file is in the EMB format, which is the original host file for this digitizer, but it's now going to take it to a machine file. If I was exporting it for somebody else's machine, it would go into a JEF file, but at my machine, actually will use JEF files, of course it will, but it actually rather would have a JPX file, because I'd rather a good machine that likes the JPX straight from the horse's mouth, if you like. So on my I gotta go and find it now. There's bound to be Peter Rabbit on here somewhere. Yeah. Go and find my Peter Rabbit. You can see all my Peter Rabbits are on here. Block central panel. Let's go to central panel. Bottom right. All the bits I've done so far. This is the rose. Where's the butterflies gone then? Oh, bottom right butterfly. Top right butterfly. Top right. This was all the other bits were putting down the scrolly blue bits. Right. So now this is the rose. This is well, that's it, it's done. It's written to my thing now, okay? So basically, the way that they have this designed is that this rose goes both top left and bottom right, and it's the same file. It's, you know, on the other one, there were two different butterflies, but on this one, they are literally same thing, on opposite corners. So it's now written to my USB stick, which I'll stick in my machine, and away we go. I will be putting up an additional file which will show me actually physically stitching this out on the machine on my original blue scroll, my original quilt central piece, as it will be in the end. So look out for the next video I put up, which will be the completion of this. Only if you're interested, but it's a look forward, if you like, into what is achievable with an embroidery machine. Thank you.